Coming up on The Will Cain Show. It is The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Always on demand by subscribing at Apple or on Spotify, or setting a reminder at Facebook or on YouTube. What's up? Hope you had a happy weekend. Welcome back here to a brand new week of The Will Cain Show. Glad to have you hanging out. Exciting weekend in golf. Exciting weekend for Rory McIlroy and at the Masters. And exciting weekend when it comes to sanity, at least in some parts of the left, some corners of the left, most notably when it comes to comedian Bill Maher. He had a revelation about 1 week ago when he had dinner with President Donald Trump. He took to his show on Friday night to share his newfound sanity. Let's get to it all now with story number one. Friday night, Bill Maher laid out his Kid Rock arranged meeting at the White House with President Donald Trump. Dana White also involved. Bill Maher came to the meeting with a list of something like 64 insults printed out on paper that President Trump had said at some point about Maher. They laughed, and Donald Trump signed the sheet of insults. Just the day before, President Trump had said he was unsure about this meeting, that he was unsure about Bill Maher. Maher, though, was gracious on real time. Gracious in that he chose to tell the truth. He risked the ire of his audience, and audience capture is a very real issue, not just on the left, but on the right. He risked it all by telling the truth exactly how he experienced a night with Donald Trump. Here is Bill Maher.
Just for starters, he laughs. I'd never seen him laugh in public, but he does, including at himself. And it's not fake. Believe me, as a comedian of 40 years, I know a fake laugh when I hear it. He's much more self-aware than he lets on in public. Look, I get it. It doesn't matter who he is at a private dinner with a comedian. It matters who he is on the world stage. I'm just taking as a positive that this person exists, because everything I've ever not liked about him was, I swear to God, absent, at least on this night with this guy. Bob, Kid Rock, told me the night before, he said, if you want to get a word in edgewise, you're going to have to cut him off. He'll just go on. Not at all. I've had so many conversations with prominent people who are much less connected, people who don't look you in the eye, people who don't really listen because they just want to get to their next thing, people whose response to things you say just doesn't track, like, what? None of that with him. And he mostly steered the conversation to, what do you think about this? I know, your mind is blown. So's mine.
So fascinating to hear someone tell the truth, experience the truth, and then share the truth. Bill Maher, I think, is somebody who had been captured largely, and I don't presume that going forward he's going to somehow be liberated, but had been captured by a narrow vein of media painting a narrow picture of Donald Trump. Let's lay down a little runway. It's not that that is all false. It's just mostly false. There's no doubt Donald Trump leans into the performance. He is bombastic. He is combative. I think I identify a little bit. Not that I'm the performer and not that I'm the communicator of Donald Trump, but I identify a little bit with the authenticity of the moment. You meet someone on their level. If somebody wants to come in hurling insults or debate you vigorously, well, then we will hurl insults or we will debate vigorously. If somebody wants to come in good charity and good spirits, then we'll have a good time. That has been my experience with Donald Trump. I think both versions are real. If he sits down with Kristen Welker or Caitlin Collins and they want to turn it into gotcha, interruptions, cutoff, combativeness, he'll meet that combativeness. If you want to come in, and Maher says, and this wasn't an interview, it was a conversation. If you want to come in to this night, to this moment, in curiosity, good spirit, in conversation, Donald Trump will meet you, and both are real. Identify that a little bit. People say, how can you be the same guy that on First Take that you are on the Will Cain Show on ESPN Radio? Or how can you be my mom visited me this weekend. She said, I like this you that smiles. I like the you that's happy on the Will Cain Show on Fox. She goes, you can be mean when some of those people step in. You can be intense. I'm like, yeah, well, both are real. I can be both because I am both. Different versions, different moments. I think that's Donald Trump. And for anybody that's ever met Donald Trump, what Bill Maher had to say is real. Curious, open-minded. What do you think? Conversational, eye contact. What he said there about engage in the conversation on the same level, I think it's something that you can project yourself into and find some identification. We all can. You ever have a conversation with people, you're like, I'm just an audience in this conversation. Or, they're not listening to me because their responses don't match what I'm talking about. Or vice versa. That's not what it is with Donald Trump. And Bill Maher was part of this capture of a certain narrow caricature. It's been painted for a decade of Donald Trump. In fact, Bill Maher was a perpetuator of that capture. Well, not just a consumer, but a magnifier of that cartoonish image of Trump. And he had that bubble burst. Again, I don't think this means that Bill Maher is going to all of a sudden become a MAGA or even a big fan of Donald Trump. But I think his surprise and revelation is real. I think he lived in a false reality and he was forced to confront reality. And it's pretty cool he chose to share that truth. It wasn't completely well received. And I think this is a perfect dichotomy to have Piers Morgan and Josh Rogan of the Washington Post on his panel after he says these things on Real Time. Because Josh Rogan, again, columnist for the Washington Post, serves as a good illustration of the media that is dedicated to the cartoon Donald Trump. Watch this moment from Real Time.
Your motivation is sound, but what's the impact? And I think a lot of people out there, fans of yours, people who love you, people who are fans of you, like me, I've been fans of you.
You don't have to patronize me, dude.
Okay.
I don't know you. I never met you.
I'm just saying that this comes from a place of love.
Not everybody has to like it.
All I'm
That's
saying
what we said. There are people who didn't want it to happen at all. You sound like one of them. It's
no,
okay.
No.
But did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
Like, what is the alternative to not talking? Just sit at your lunch table and don't talk to anybody?
Rogan says several times in there, I love you, Bill. We love you. We just think maybe that you were used as a pawn by Donald Trump. And after like showering Maher in multiple compliments, being real, Maher's like, I don't know you, dude. We just met. Don't patronize me. What an incredible moment. I actually have met, not just Donald Trump, but I have met Bill Maher. And it doesn't actually come as a surprise to me that he is authentic, that he is real. He is wrong. And he has suffered at times from Trump derangement syndrome. That's what we saw. We saw Trump derangement syndrome receive a dose of reality chemotherapy. He got a dose of medicine. He got a window of reality. It doesn't mean he's cured, but he is real. He is authentic, both on and off camera. That takes a lot of cojones. If someone who is like on TV, that level of, I don't know you, dude, we just met after someone showering you with compliments, is a pretty refreshing response of reality. I don't think this is one of those moments where all of a sudden you're like, we should celebrate because somebody from the left finally got it right. I actually think this is a moment to be celebrated of just pure authenticity. Both Bill Maher meeting it and Bill Maher repeating it after his meeting with Donald Trump. The boys in New York are here, Tinfoil Pat, youngest houseman James, and two-a-days Dan. Big weekend at the Masters. Big weekend at Augusta. Rory McIlroy becomes only the sixth golfer to win the career Grand Slam, win all four majors. I watched much of the Masters on Saturday and on Sunday. I had to check out just in time for all of the drama. I had to check out for the last four holes. One of my sons is playing in what is, I believe, if not the biggest, one of the top two youth soccer tournaments in North America. And It's in Dallas every year. Nice. It's called the Dallas Cup, and it brings in 45 countries from across the world. 450, I can't remember, 450 teams and tens of thousands of players. It's really cool. And they kicked off yesterday, had their first game. They have a game today. They have a game on Wednesday. And on Sunday night is the opening ceremonies. And it's a little bit like the Olympics. It's at the Cotton Bowl in Fair Park in downtown Dallas. Everybody parades in to the field with their country flags and banners, and they're announced as they come in. It's really cool. But unfortunately, in the Cotton Bowl with tens of thousands of others, you don't get cell service. So my phone stopped streaming the Masters. So I didn't get to see the climactic final 2 holes. It strikes me that what we got to experience with Rory McIlroy is something that I think you don't often experience, which is a collapse staved off. Like Rory collapsed. He shot, was it 1 or 2 over for the day?
1.
And Justin Rose shot 6 under for the day, forcing a tie at 18. That type of march usually is unstoppable. That type of regression for Rory and that type of advance from Justin Rose is hard to turn the tides on. And yet they go into a playoff, and Rory McIlroy wins in the first hole of the playoff. Pretty resilient, pretty strong to be able to stave all this off. And, James, I'll let you read this because you seem to think it bears some resemblance to the comeback and career of President Donald Trump.
Do you want me to go word for word with it? Like it's a... or just summarize it?
I'd prefer you to broadcast.
Oh,
you make the decision.
Do like a Morgan Freeman impression? No, we're not going to do that. In late January, Trump had started to throw around the idea of making another run for the presidency. You know, Jack Nicklaus was pretty famous for letting people collapse and just hanging around. Trump mused to Senator Lindsey Graham over lunch at Mar-a-Lago, referring to the legendary American golfer. Trump said that should be his strategy with Biden. When Nicklaus was behind in a tournament, he'd just say, well, what are you going to do? I'm just going to hang around and see what happens. That's how he won the Masters in '86. You know, you have 2 good holes and everybody else falls apart. Well, Trump said, I'm just going to be hanging around.
So that's the story of Donald Trump talking about running again. Nice Trump impression by Young Establishment James. And the argument is something that I've talked about a lot when it comes to success, which is hanging around the hoop. That you will achieve a lot of success in life by simply staying persistent and consistent. And everyone else will blow themselves up around you. And before you know it, you will be standing at the podium. You will be standing with success. That's the theory laid out by Jack Nicklaus and what he won in '86 that you hear Donald Trump repeating to Lindsey Graham. But I don't think that's the story of Donald Trump.
Oh, Trump. Oh.
Well, you said it reminds you of Rory. Something about this weekend reminded you of Rory, and Trump is claiming that is part of his strategy when it comes to winning the presidency, that he hung around, ran again as Biden and others blow up around him.
I actually think it more was akin to Scheffler's almost comeback because Scheffler wasn't having his best week, and he just sort of hung around, and on the last day he started to get really hot and like almost made an insane comeback, as did a bunch of other guys. Like he had 7 guys within the last 2. But yeah, no, I mean,
Scotty Scheffler ended up 3 strokes short after a great final day at the Masters. Donald Trump's career to me doesn't remind me of somebody who hangs around the hoop waiting for others to blow themselves up. He reminds me of a guy who throws, if not Hail Marys, deep passes the entire game long. He's throwing 20-yard chunk plays.
Pulls out
in
the big
golf
dog.
parlance, he reminds me of Roy McIlroy. Pulls out the big dog in Tin Cup. He's the guy that's going for the green in 2, not laying up, parring out, and winning the U.S. Open. That's Donald Trump to me. And that's, by the way, this entire tariff regime as well. And I love that scene. We tried to find it, but we couldn't find it. The scene after Roy McIlroy blows up and gets I don't know what he ended up getting on the 18th hole of the U.S. Open, but we'll call it a 15.
Sure.
He walks off after reality hits him, after he finally drains it in 2, which would be 2, but all the drops he had to take, it ended up being like a 15. And he confronts his girlfriend, played by Renee Russo. Character is Molly, and she goes, Roy, that was incredible. And he says, what are you talking about, Molly? I just gave away the U.S. Open. She's like, 5 years from now, nobody will remember who won the U.S. Open, but everyone's going to remember you're 15. Why? You're immortal. You're legendary.
Yeah, she goes.
And I think that's more Donald Trump.
She goes, my God, Roy, it's immortal.
Yes. Well, I love the lesson of hanging around the hoop, and I love as it applied to golf or any other sport. I don't think it is the application for Donald Trump. I think he is going for immortal. But that was a hell of a playoff and hell of a win by Rory McIlroy. All right, Stephen A. Smith, speaking of sports, says he's going to run for president while Taylor Lorenz, forgiven if you don't know who she is, celebrates Luigi Mangione. Celebrates a murderer. Next, when we come back on the Will Cain Show. Summer's here, almost. It's like pre-summer, it's spring, it's get in shape time. That's what it means. It means get in shape, get in the gym, which I haven't yet, get ready. It also means eating right. That means lots of protein. That means many opportunities to now start going outside, grilling, steaks, chicken, get it all on the grill. Handcrafted steaks, by the way, this spring are there for you at Omaha Steaks. They deliver the world's best steak experience. And right now, with Spring Savings Event, you can get 50% off site-wide at omahasteaks.com. Plus, our listeners get an extra $30 off with promo code WILL at the checkout. You want a steak. You want a freezer full of steaks. That's what you want, which I have, by the way, thanks to Omaha Steaks. And it's not just about having steak night. It's not just about the night you're grilling out. It's actually beginning to have that available for you for all your meals. Lunch in the air fryer, leftovers because you made enough on the grill, protein and steaks throughout your week. It's Heartland quality food delivered right to your door. It's the perfect time to get fired up for the spring grilling with exceptional handcrafted flavor and convenience of Omaha Steaks. Omaha Steaks offers unrivaled quality and variety. Every bite is backed by their 100% guarantee. Every steak, perfectly aged to maximize tenderness and hand cut by master butchers of grass-fed, grain-finished beef. Has more marbling for exceptional flavor and the choice of steakhouses and professional chefs around the world. Get the fan favorite filet mignon. It's earned the coveted distinction of the USDA certified tender. Bring home the world's best steak experience with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide during their spring savings event and then an extra $30 off by using the promo code WILL at checkout. That's 50% off at omahasteaks.com and an extra $30 off with the promo code WILL at checkout. See site for details. Karol Markowicz coming up on the Will Cain Show. Stephen A. Smith for president. And Taylor Lorenz says he's smart, he's good looking, he's got good morals. She's talking about murderer, alleged murderer. Luigi Mangione. It's the Will Cain Show. Streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel and the Fox News Facebook page. Hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. I don't suspect you know who Taylor Lorenz is. Guys, do you think people know? Like, I can talk about Bill Maher. We can talk about what happened last week with Bill Maher. People know who Bill Maher is. Do people know who Taylor Lorenz is? I'm not sure that they do.
I don't think I knew who she was until I worked here.
I saw her on some documentary recently. That was about it. I didn't really know much about her.
Okay, so she used to write for the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
So she has that credential, right? And I don't know what her beat was, like tech, social media type. Yeah. Was she fired, laid off, quit the New York Times? I can't remember how that came to an end.
Wasn't there a whole
But
ordeal?
I think it's... Go ahead.
Where the Washington Post and like New York Times were fighting over her, and like she left to one, and it was controversial. But like, that's the whole thing. Like that, someone this crazy would be fought over by.
Rift with editors at the Washington Post.
Okay. Was I wrong about New York Times? Or was she New York Times before Washington Post?
She was...
Yeah, I think she was there first.
Yeah, she was New York Times. Technology reporter for the New York Times. I don't know the timeline, but yeah.
And okay, so the point is, I mean, credentials, like paid by somebody who has a lot of money to pay people for media. I mean, the Post and the Times don't have what they used to have, but still. And she became a big figure on social media. Big lefty. You know, she's cried about the online abuse she's gotten. That was part of her bit. But here she is now talking to CNN about the man accused of killing the United Healthcare CEO, Luigi Mangione. Listen to this.
Hilarious to see these millionaire media pundits on TV clutching their pearls about someone standing a murderer when this is the United States of America, as if we don't lionize criminals, as if we don't have, we don't stand murderers of all sorts, and we give them Netflix shows. There's a huge disconnect between the narratives and the angles that sort of mainstream media pushes and what the American public feels. And you see that in moments like this. And I can tell you, I saw the biggest audience growth that I've ever seen, because people were like, oh, some journalist is actually speaking to the anger that we feel.
The women who got her outside court in New York.
So you're going to see women especially that feel like, oh my God, right? Like, here's this man who's revolutionary, who's famous, who's handsome, who's young, who's smart. He's a person that seems this morally good man, which is hard to find. They want somebody to take on the system. They want somebody to tear down these barbaric establishment institutions.
So gross on so many levels. Let's bring in the host of the Karol Markowicz Show, also the co-host of Normally. She's also the writer of Stolen Youth, How Radicals Are Erasing Innocence and Indoctrinating a Generation. Karol Markowicz here on the Will Cain Show. Hey, Karol.
Hi, Will. So nice to be on. Thank you.
By the way, and fellows back in New York, I was just thinking, Karol, one of my first things, and it shouldn't be one of the first things that you notice in this clip. How old is Taylor Lorenz? Like, do you know, I just looked it up during the clip. Wikipedia won't say, because that's a whole thing. Like, right, she's hiding her age. But I believe she's late 40s and
41.
Unironic. About. She's 41. I don't believe it. Yeah, I don't believe it. Somehow she's managed to hide her age. Somehow. But she's unironically saying standing for murder.
On CNN.
She's using the word stan. On CNN, yeah. She's using the word stan, like it's internet culture come to real life, because she's here for this morally courageous, handsome murderer, Luigi Mangione. Karol.
Well, it's funny because you were talking about her past at the Washington Post and the New York Times, and part of her role was to be the voice of the youth. And as she got older and older, everyone was like, she doesn't know what the youth are saying. She's, older at this point. So I think her attempt to use standing is an attempt to connect with the kids, as they say. But standing is actually also like a decade old, if not more. It comes from the Eminem song Stan. It means to be a huge, insane fan of something. And I think there's some better language that she could have chosen for the CNN audience.
Look at you. I didn't know the origin of standing. You pulled out Eminem.
I'm cool.
Part of me, when I watch this clip, gets angry because, this is morally repugnant. She is lionizing. She's actually like kind of, I don't know about lusting, maybe, after a guy because he committed murder. And she was a voice of prominence. But then part of me is like, she's just laughable. I mean, everything about her is laughable, from using Stan to hiding her age, to crying on camera about the abuse she's received. Now she's championing a murderer. And I just think at some point, like, really, what does she represent? Does she represent actually a big part of America? Or does she represent a really small group of people who brunch, no offense, Dan, who brunch in Brooklyn and know who Taylor Lorenz is?
It's tough to say. There was a recent study out, I think like last week, that over half of leftists believe that violence is acceptable. And it wasn't like punch in the face violence. The question was whether assassinating Donald Trump would be acceptable. And over half said it would be. So we're actually facing this problem where this assassination culture, that's what the people of the report called it, is spreading. I'm getting served this kind of rhetoric and this kind of imagery on Facebook all the time. And I always saw Facebook as like where your mom goes, where your grandma is on Facebook to collect recipes and connect with her friends from 40 years ago. It's not supposed to be this place of violent rhetoric and kind of insane imagery. I get served Donald Trump assassination imagery often. And so I think this kind of thing is spreading. Yes, Taylor Lorenz is a fringe figure, but I think she is actually speaking for a segment of the left that considers violence just part of the equation and thinks it's okay to kill people who you simply don't like.
Well, you had that study from a week ago, and then there's a couple of examples just in the last couple of days. There's a kid who's been arrested, who was fantasizing, threatening, talking about killing Donald Trump. This is just in the last couple of days. Apparently, he's connected to some kind of cult, which, among other things, was neo-Nazi but nihilistic. And then you also have whatever happened, we don't know yet, with Governor Josh Shapiro in Pennsylvania, where his house was firebombed. I mean, a guy snuck in the mansion, the governor's mansion in Pennsylvania. He threw like several Molotov cocktails, which were beer bottles filled with gasoline, and torched the place. Governor Shapiro and his family got out. We don't know this guy's motivations, from what I understand. But yeah, I mean, this assassination culture, this tolerance of violence, and it is on the left. I think it's actually bigger than the left. It's actually a lot of America's all of a sudden looking this way, but certainly pronounced, and more so pronounced, on the left.
Absolutely. And of course, Donald Trump has been attempted assassination twice now. That's quite a lot. And so I am concerned that that is becoming a more normalized thing to say and think on the left than it had been in the past. Of course, it goes beyond just the left. Of course, there's violence in every sector of society. But I just think, again, the acceptability of it. I don't see kind of the right-wing violent imagery on Facebook. I don't see it in more normal circumstances. And so I do think the left is becoming more violent, more angry, more accepted of this kind of thing. The whole Tesla thing, where people are keying Teslas across the country, it might seem like, oh, this is no big deal, but it actually is a big deal to destroy somebody's property because you disagree with the CEO of the company that they bought the car from. That's quite a leap. So I think all of this is heading in a bad direction. I hope that Democrats start speaking up for this kind of thing and saying, not just it's unacceptable, but we will punish this. We will make sure that these people are held accountable. Because saying, this is unacceptable, hate has no home here, all of that rhetoric is meaningless. You have to hold these people accountable or it's going to continue.
What do you think is the primary driver of this shift, of this growing embrace of violence? Now, I'm going to give you sort of a multiple choice. These are the things I'm considering that are driving this. The easy one to talk about is media rhetoric, and it's true. Media rhetoric has gotten increasingly irresponsible and bombastic. And while Fox is often like, everybody's like, oh, that's where it's, no. I do not think that you will hear the type of stuff on Fox that you will hear, quite honestly, on CNN or MSNBC. And then repeated by the likes of Taylor Lorenz, whether or not at the Washington Post or the New York Times. And that is where you're constantly in this existential crisis, and there is a devil figure out there, or figures in Trump or Musk or Hegseth or whatever, that threaten to take away your very rights, that threaten your very existence. And that is on a nightly basis. Like, that is pumped into the bloodstream on a nightly basis. And I think MSNBC is the worst offender of it. But look, they don't have much of an audience at all. But you don't need much of an audience. A couple 100,000 will do the trick. So that takes me to the second thing. The second thing would just be pure on Trump derangement syndrome. Like, we're a decade into this now. So we have a population of people that have been raised with this insanity. They've been raised. And even if they're not consuming MSNBC or Taylor Lorenz, they're swimming in the waters of it for a decade of living life like it's The Handmaid's Tale. But then the third might be the most concerning for me, which is, and this is kind of the conversation we've had around tariffs and other things, like, we do have simultaneously a rise of income inequality in America, combined with the belief there is a systemic stagnation on the middle class and below. So in other words, nobody cares that a rich guy gets rich unless you feel like you can't also get rich, right? If you feel like there's a systemic pressure stagnating you and you can't make progress, then you have a real malaise that is beyond political ideology. And we've seen that play out, whether or not it's the French Revolution or whatever it may be. That usually is a symptom of a society that then turns to civil discord and potentially violence.
I do think it's a combination of those things. I think the fourth thing that I would add is that on the right, there's a lot of self-policing. If you said something that was really kind of violent or would maybe spur someone to violence, there'd be 1,000 think pieces tomorrow and all the right-wing outlets saying, Will Cain, I don't stand with him, that what he said is inappropriate. But on the left, it not only it goes excused, but they kind of support each other in this. They say, oh, he didn't mean that, or this is you're taking this out of context. That's what's happening with the Taylor Lorenz thing right now. We've heard what she said, and yet the left is self-protecting and saying, oh, she didn't really say what you heard that she said. Of course, you're right that in societies that people feel like they're not getting ahead because of somebody, but often that kind of thing really is spurred by someone else. Like I think of Che Guevara t-shirts, when the left wears that kind of thing, or the French Revolution, like you said, it is actually somebody turning these people against somebody who generally has nothing to do with whether that their lives are better or worse. Elon Musk has nothing to do with whether somebody gets ahead or not. He's not stopping anybody from getting ahead. So I think they are being kind of led to this. And I think that on the left, there needs to be more self-policing. They cannot allow this kind of rhetoric to go on with nobody stopping in to say, you can't say this kind of thing.
Karol, let's do some self-reflection. You're Jewish, a big supporter of Israel. Do you think that the right, I just listened to Douglas Murray and Dave Smith debate on the Joe Rogan podcast last week. Douglas is, and it's a fascinating debate on many levels. It's unproductive as well on many levels, but I still thought it was important to listen to. It's 3 hours. And I'm not going to do a full breakdown on it. I'm not taking sides. I think both guys made an interesting points. I actually don't think there was a big winner in it. I think certain people came out on top during certain sections of the conversation, and it flipped throughout the conversation. I truly think that. That's my honest opinion.
Yeah.
But underneath a lot of what Douglas Murray has to say as they debate Israel and so forth is he thinks the right is flirting with anti-Semitism. And, they use Michael Malice's quote in there, both of them. They both like Michael Malice several times. You're supposed to take one red pill, not the whole bottle. What do you think is the problem? Do you think that this is true? Do you think this is a problem on the right?
I think it is developing into a problem on the right. I think anti-Semitism in America has been a left-wing phenomenon for most of my life. And I think that has gone excused again. Left kind of gets away with this kind of thing. And I do see it growing on the right now. I think the difference is on the left, you have anti-Semites actually in government. I don't have a problem. I can't think of really a politician that I have a problem with on the right who I would think was anti-Semitic. So it's very different from the left and the right. I do see that a lot of this, again, taking the red pill whole bottle thing, where there is kind of this message being spread on the right, like don't trust Jews. And it's not just about Israel. That's really where I think people get lost in the weeds, that it has very little to do with Israel. And on the right, the support of Israel is largely let them fight their own war. On the right, no one's like, let's send troops over to Israel. Let's help them, get into a war with Iran. I largely do not see that at all. So I don't think it's Israel related as much as it is, one of the oldest hatreds in the book. And the fact that it does make people more popular. Taylor Lorenz made this great point that she picked up a large amount of new listeners when she started talking about how great Luigi Mangione is. I think the same kind of phenomenon is happening on the right. When you're a minority voice on the right and criticizing Jews and spreading these kinds of weird, ideas like, oh, Jews did 9/11 or that kind of thing, I think you are going to pick up some segment of the population that wants to hear something controversial like that. So I'm still more worried about it on the left. I absolutely have my eye on the right as well. I don't think largely these people are conservatives either. Like, I think, you and I have had this conversation in the past. Is Joe Rogan a conservative? Is, Ian Carroll a conservative? Is Dave Smith a conservative? I don't see any of these people as conservatives.
Well, and no, and I think most of those guys would not, I don't know Ian Carroll, the other two wouldn't describe themselves as conservatives. See, I think, and I don't think Rogan's making, I actually don't, I don't think Rogan's making any mistake. I think these conversations should be had, and I don't sort of subscribe to the it's a complicated question, the whole expertise conversation that Douglas Murray wanted to have about who's an expert on a subject, because we've seen such failings of experts, that maybe that's the point, okay? So I think there's a little bit of a risk on the right. It's less to do about anti-Semitism and more to do with, because institutions had lied so readily over the last, well, at this point, let's call it 10 years, because it does actually go back into the Trump administration with, you know, the institutions, including the FBI, that pushed forward things like the Russia hoax. So you have so many lies that are pushed so long that a lot of people like begin to distrust everything, every single thing, every initial narrative. That's fine. Distrust is fine. But it then becomes this, because kind of like you said, it's a great line you point out. Taylor Lorenz goes, my audience never grew more than when I started talking about Luigi. Well, who gives a shit about your audience? Like, I mean, what are you talking about? That was to get more followers? That's validation of what you were talking about? My point is, I think there is audience capture and traction. And you're like, oh, I'm finding a market in this. I'm finding a market in saying, here's the story, but that's not what really happened. And I'm open. Like me, I want to be an open-minded person, and I'm distrustful of original narratives, and I'm distrustful of institutions. But on the right, I do think that's taking off to a degree that it's a never-ending thing. Like you're a pawn on everything. Everything you're a pawn on, nothing is true.
Right. Well, that's the whole thing, right? You need some basis of truth. And of course, I'm suspicious of the expert class. Of course I am. And in the last 10 years has been kind of an education on that. But that doesn't mean like a Candace Owens, for example, who ends up arguing there were no dinosaurs, we never landed on the moon, you know, all of one conspiracy theory leads to all the other conspiracy theories. And I see the same thing with Ian Carroll. It is the taking the whole red pill bottle. But of course, there is a difference between that and, say, a Joe Rogan, who I don't think is necessarily steeped in that conspiracy theory world. He is giving kind of space to that. And I don't know that that's the best way to handle it. In a lot of times, I think it's good to hear these perspectives in order to be able to shoot them down. But you have to be able to shoot them down. You have to have the research and the background yourself to say, this isn't true, this isn't true, this isn't true. So it's a tough spot. Again, I worry about anti-Semitism on the right, but it is here and now and really prevalent on the left. And I still think that's where it needs to be fought.
All right, let's talk about, everyone's talking about Stephen A. Smith, and I think it's because he went on This Week on ABC, and they asked him about running for president, and he basically said, yeah, I'm going to keep that door open. I do not, I'm here to tell you, as somebody who knows Stephen A., I'm not telling you I've talked to him, I do not think Stephen A. Smith will run for president. I think the cost is way too high, that he makes a lot of money at ESPN and Disney. I don't think he's going to walk away from that for the risk of a presidential run. That being said, he's being taken seriously. And I go back and forth on this. Like, I've told Stephen A., like, dude, you shouldn't run for president, and I hope you're never president. And he'll laugh and go, like, I'm not, I shouldn't be. He'll agree. Like, right now, I shouldn't be. But his contention is, if I study and I dig in, I'll be better than all these other guys. Maybe. But he does have something that no one else has on the left. And that is, like, personality and charisma and charm and the ability to command an audience.
Yeah. Well, I actually think Stephen A. is at his most likable when you and him are talking. So if you'd run as his vice president, you know, maybe we could have a cross-party ticket and see what happens. You know, he only got recently interested in politics. So I'm always kind of curious about these people who woke up one day, decided they'd be into politics and then run for president. And I'm not sure that that's really what the best move for him here is. He is becoming more of a mainstream figure and more of a, like, less of just a sports guy and less of a left-wing sports guy because he goes on The View and challenges them. He could be a talk show host. I could see him getting into maybe not late night necessarily, but a daytime talk show host or something like that. I could see him taking a different role. But again, unless you're his VP, I don't see him running for president.
So 2 points on this I think are interesting. One, David Marcus, our mutual friend, he has a column up saying, sorry, Stephen A., Democrats don't allow outsiders. And he's 100% right. Marcus is right. Like, they didn't let Bernie Sanders, so why are they going to let Stephen A. Smith? The establishment machine of Democrat Party politics will not allow that. That being said, it's really pronounced on Democrats, among Democrats, but it was pronounced among Republicans. And Donald Trump, people forget that's the first battle he won, was to destroy the Republican apparatus designed to keep somebody like Donald Trump from running for president. That was a huge victory. And that brings my second thing, Carol. People don't appreciate, in retrospect, two things about Donald Trump. One, what I just laid out to you, like the ability to win a Republican primary and win over the Republican Party might have been the most monumental step to start with that anyone could take. And the second is he had an issue set, and his issue set was in touch with America and out of touch with Republicans. This was when Mitt Romney lost and people were saying we need to moderate on immigration. And here comes Donald Trump going, no, we're not. We're tripling down on immigration. You know, and he drove an issue set that attracted voters. And honestly, right now, the issue set for Stephen A. is like race. It's like DEI. And that one ain't going to fly as his unique thing that he can forward.
Right. And I think, one of their kind of things that they have in common is Donald Trump said what he meant. And that was unique. I remember in 2016, it rubbed people the wrong way. It rubbed me the wrong way sometimes. I didn't like that he just said whatever he was thinking. And I definitely learned some important lessons along the way from that. I think Stephen A. has that same thing where he just says what he thinks and doesn't really consider that people are going to not like that. And that's a plus. That's a plus when you're in the political sphere. Again, you're right that the Democrats kind of self-police in a way that Republicans simply don't. I don't think he gets through a primary. I think the Democrats close ranks, get in the smoke-filled back room and decide what to do about him. But it will be interesting to watch him expose that if he does decide to run.
Here's what Stephen A. said on ABC.
Are you really thinking about running for president? Is this something you think?
Listen, I have no choice because I've had elected officials, and I'm not going to give their names, elected officials coming up to me. I've had folks who are pundits come up to me. I've had folks that got a lot of money, billionaires and others, that have talked to me about exploratory committees and things of that nature. I'm not a politician. I've never had a desire to be a politician. I just signed a contract extension with ESPN. I am very, very
pretty
happy
good one, too.
With my day job. I'm very happy with my boss. This is a pretty damn good one. Just right. It's a pretty damn good contract. I couldn't be happier. But here's the reality. People have walked up to me, including my own pastor, for crying out loud, who has said to me, you don't know what God has planned for you. At least show the respect to the people who believe in you, who respect you, who believe that you can make a difference in this country, to leave the door open for any possibilities 2 to 3 years down the line.
It's so Carol, this morning on Fox, they had a list of potential Democrat candidates. I was just looking at the list. Josh Shapiro's on the list, Kamala Harris, Gretchen Whitmer. I was just kind of looking across the list. I was like, no. The one that I stopped down on was Wes Moore. And honestly, Pete Hegseth used to tell me that, hey, that guy has talent. That's going to be a guy they're going to start pointing to in the future. He's the governor of Maryland, right? Wes Moore. And I haven't seen a lot of Wes Moore, but maybe he's the guy we're not paying enough attention to.
Maybe. I do hear kind of from my friends who live in Maryland that they're not big fans. Of course, they're mostly on the right. I don't know what that will showcase into. It's tough for someone like that to break through unless they're already on the national stage, because it's coming up. You know, Donald Trump only has this one term. They're going to have to turn to somebody that already has somewhat of a national profile. It will be funny if they run Kamala Harris again. I kind of don't see that happening, although maybe she gives it another shot and tries to be more herself this time. Maybe Jared Polis from Colorado, I could see him appealing, having some cross appeal. But Stephen A. makes good points that if God wants you to run and if he's urging you to run, maybe he does make that attempt.
All right, last topic with Karol Markowicz here. By the way, make sure you check out Carol's one of her 2 podcasts, Normally or the Karol Markowicz Show. You can get that wherever you like, sure. Spotify, Apple, wherever you get podcasts. And that is last week, Donald Trump, right before the market rally, when it hit its sort of bottom mid-week last week, he tweeted out this. He said that now would be a good time to buy. This is a great time to buy. ! DJT. A few hours later, the market rallies because he announces that he's putting a 90-day pause on the tariffs. Now, that's led Democrats like Cory Booker to say this.
Do you think there's any evidence that anyone profited off of these tariffs?
There is enough of an offense here. There's enough smoke here that should demand congressional hearings. We are a separate and equal branch of government. The Constitution lays out very clearly that Congress is not supposed to be spineless and submissive. It is supposed to hold up oversight over the president. These are real, legitimate, justifiable questions, and not to have hearings, not to do any kind of oversight undermines the faith we have in our government, undermines the trust we need in our nation right now.
Yeah.
And so from the signal gate all the way to this kind of symbols or signs of corruption, Congress should be doing its job.
Oh, I'm actually glad that Senator Booker of New Jersey brought up Signalgate because, I don't know, they want to look into see what if Donald Trump's friends profited after he said now's a good time to buy, and that's somehow insider trading, which is usually for your own pecuniary benefit or somebody's giving you a kickback or something like that. But he brings up Signalgate because it seems to me like it's another story, less even so than Signalgate, where week to week they're grasping at straws to find anything to get on the front foot.
Right. That's exactly what's happening here. They are so lost and so confused in this second Donald Trump term. They don't know what to grasp onto. And they want to find something on him. But him publicly tweeting or saying, truthing that now is a good time to buy. Of course, it was a good time to buy. The market was down. Why you buy the dip? Everybody knows that. So I don't think there was anything insider trading at that point. And the idea that Cory Booker can just say, "Oh, there was smoke, and we think that there might be something there, and now we want to look into it." There were 4 years of the Biden administration smoke. There was 4 years of Hunter Biden making obvious deals on behalf of his dad or selling his paintings for exorbitant amount of money for people who wanted access to his father. There was no smoke then. Cory Booker didn't see any smoke then. So spare me this whole thing. When Donald Trump tells the American people to buy from the stock market, buy stocks, he's not just saying it to his friends and his allies. He's telling all of us the obvious that when the stock market's down,
he literally told all of America. Yeah.
Yeah.
He told all of America. By the way, also, if they want to open this can of worms, insider trading, I think the American public is good with that. Okay, let's do that.
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, I'll tell you, I go out and people, this story is brought up to me often, how much Washington politicians seem to be really good traders and make money when they're in office. And the most notorious of which is Nancy Pelosi, which we have Nancy Pelosi's recent trading stats. She's got a tracker on her stocks, inside tracker. And I believe, is this one NVIDIA, guys? Her trading NVIDIA. She's made $15 million this year alone on her positions, and is already up $2 million, which is 10 times her annual salary, off one NVIDIA trade. The greatest to ever do it, Nancy Pelosi.
She's just a talent, Will. She's just a financial talent. Yeah. I mean, the fact that you could follow Nancy Pelosi's trades and make money for yourself is a tell that there's something going on there. Of course, there's a delay on those trades. So you don't find out until a little bit after she makes them. But if you could follow her exact pattern, we could be very, very rich. And obviously, I think that there's more there, and that I would welcome an investigation into that. And that goes for Republican, Congress people as well. If they're doing anything shady, I want to know about it.
Absolutely. So be ready if you want to open that investigation, Senator Booker. We're ready to look into the insider trading of all public politicians. Okay, remember, check out the Karol Markowicz Show or Normally, which she hosts with Mary Catherine Ham, right? And you can go get those at Spotify or Apple, or check her out at the New York Post and foxnews.com as well. It's Karol Markowicz. Thanks so much, Karol.
Thanks so much, Will. Love being on with you.
Okay, take care. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, the quarterback at the University of Tennessee is now gone. Why? He wanted $4 million a year. At this stage in the game, they offered $2 million. Nope, it's over. How do you have a deal where they end up with no quarterback and he ends up with no team? The worst of all possible worlds coming up in college football next on the Will Cain Show. Everybody's talking about the University of Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava. think I got that right? Maybe. Amialeva, who's no longer a Vol, and they don't have a quarterback. It's the Will Cain Show on FoxNews.com, at Fox News YouTube, and Fox News Facebook. Hit subscribe at Apple or on Spotify. So, fellas, this is a bad deal. So, Nico Amialeva, how am I doing on that? Does anyone know? Amialeva, he's the quarterback for the University of Tennessee. What's up, Tinfoil? Am I doing well?
People are calling him Nico Amialeva.
Wow.
He's out the door.
Amialeva.
Nice.
Which recruiting class was he in? He was in Arch Manning's.
Yep.
I think he was the number 2 quarterback after Arch in his year. He played decently at Tennessee, not out of sight, pretty good, ups and downs. NIL deal of, I believe, offer on the table was $2 million, a little over $2 million. He didn't want that. He wanted more. Reports are he asked for $4 million in NIL. Let me just take a minute. It's not a shameless plug to say, I know you're listening, you're going, what in the world is going on with these NIL things? Go to Spotify, subscribe to The Will Cain Show. We had an incredible 1-hour conversation with Gabe Feldman, who's a sports law professor at Tulane, and he's the compliance provost for the Green Wave, for the Tulane University. He laid out the House settlement. It's 3 parts. It's coming down for college football. It includes vetting NIL deals, 1, a salary cap for each college at $25 million to be spent however you want. Doesn't have to all be spent on football. And roster and scholarship limits for all sports. He broke it all down. It's great. It's a great conversation to understand what's happening in college football. And as a side note, if you're getting that Cain on Sports Friday edition, guys, I spent my weekend playing with mock draft simulators. This is what I do sometimes when I have some free time.
You're obsessed.
I love it. Can't explain it. I love it. And our last conversation with Merrill Hodge really impacted me as well. Merrill Hodge did a lot of quarterback and running back breakdown for us in this coming NFL draft. Merrill's really good. He's a thinker. Like, he is a thinker on this stuff. And I came away from that. Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 pick, right? I mean, after listening to Merrill, that ain't going to work out. I mean, Merrill was like, nope. So if you're a Titans fan, I don't know. I mean, everybody's wrong here and there.
He's definitely going
But Merrill was right about Johnny Manziel. He's been right about a lot of these guys. And he has his rationale, too, on why he doesn't see it for Cam Ward. But on this note, like Nico Amialeva, so all of a sudden now Tennessee says, we're done. No more money. We're not negotiating. And he says, I'm gone. Then I'm going somewhere else. And you're in the spring portal window now. And it just makes me wonder, we have no contracts in college football, but you can ask for however much money you want, pretty much at any schedule you want. You've got a winter and spring transfer portal window. And Tennessee's in a tough spot. They can go find a quarterback in the spring portal, but you're talking about it's late now. Yeah, you got to go through fall camp, which is in the summer, or you're going to be starting like a freshman. And that's a playoff team from a year ago. That's a good team that is now quarterbackless. And how's it going to be better for Nico out there? Where's he going to go and get $4 million? Like, this is a situation where, because there's no contracts, and you can say contracts bind people in, keeps you under market rate. Yeah. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe within 2 weeks, he's going to have a $4 million deal from UCLA. I don't know. But I doubt it right now. Right now, they're saying UCLA, maybe USC for Nico Amialeva. And they've got to get this college football stuff figured out ASAP, or it's going to be a total catastrophe. Go ahead, Dan.
I just got to say I hate it all. I don't like any of it. I think it detracts from the game and how we watch it, how we play it, how we look at it. I just don't. I think it should go back to the way college was. I just don't like any of it. I understand they need to make money off their likenesses, things like that. I think other things can be done. I just don't. I think it screws everything up. That's just my opinion.
Can I ask a question? So you were on the Dan Patrick Show. I don't know when you left the Dan Patrick Show.
Because
I was on Sports
One.
About when I left Sports Radio, a little after.
Mm-hmm.
That conversation was in 2020 and 2019. And I'm going to tell you for certainty, it was wrapped up in the George Floyd racial, reckoning of America. Not that they're directly tied, but the narrative around it, that college football is a plantation and these kids are all taken advantage of. And I remember the debate because I was on the other side. And I was only on the other side by saying, you don't know what you're doing to college football. Not that I did, but that you don't. Like, this is sort of the libertarian conservative point of view of unintended consequences. You're messing with something, and you have no idea how it's going to shake out. And I never got good rebuttals other than, what are you talking about? These kids will get paid what they're worth, and it will be all better. I mean, it's just like I
hated it.
Moral appeal, right? Like, and that's a valid argument, but we are seeing something totally destroyed. Like, whatever college football was 5 years ago, it no longer is, and will only get worse. And by the way, again, coming out of that Gabe Feldman conversation, I'm sorry, Dan, but it's only going to get worse. Like, the House settlement is not going to save this. Because what's going to happen is they have $25 million salary cap, and let's say they give 75% to the football players, right? He said most Power 4 conferences will. What's going to happen? Well, the female athletes are going to sue for gender equity. They're going to sue for their half of that money. And then what's going to happen? The football players are going to sue. They're going to sue like, we bring in 95% of the revenue, and you're only giving us 75%, or you're only giving us 50%? Why are you giving all this money to a lacrosse player, even if it's not a female lacrosse player, a male? Why are you giving it to him? We're the one that earned the money. So it's going to be a mess. I don't know how they're going to sort this out to where college football is not a mess. I don't know. The foreseeable future, on into the distance.
That's what I mean. We started talking about this on Dan's show in like 2015. It was always a conversation every year. And every year I was saying this because it's a slippery slope, just like you said. Once you do one thing, a million other things are going to have to happen. And then it's going to be a completely different picture we're looking at down the road. Like it is now, like it's going to be 5 years from now. It's just
Go ahead, James.
Do you think there's an analogy to the political world too, where you are on the outside, you say all these things that need to happen and how it should be, and then you're in charge of governing, and you make some big sweeping changes, and there's 1,000 things that you maybe have to account for at some point?
Yes, and I also think I've accused the left of this for a long time. Destruction is easy, creation is hard. It's easy to destroy things that you think are wrong. That doesn't mean you shouldn't creatively destruct things that are wrong. But that's why we celebrate creative destructors. They don't just take a wrecking ball to things. They create something new that replaces it. That's creative destruction. And it's easy to destroy college football, but you have nothing to replace it with. Now, what will be the end result? Probably semi-pro football, don't you think? Or
minor leagues?
Is it even going to be semi-pro?
No. No one would care about that.
That's not the word for it. It would be like, I don't know, Division II football. Minor league football. Because their revenues...
Yeah. But minor league...
Their revenue's going to have to be separated. But it'll be the minor league for the sport that gets paid in America.
Yeah. The percentage of guys that don't go anywhere anyways. I mean, you have a whole pool of guys that want to play.
Hasn't it always been minor league football, though?
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah, but what it's a complete secondary professional ranks. It's going to have to be separated from the rest of college sports, in which case then the rest of college sports will wither. It will, because now that revenue has to be given back to the football players.
If the NCAA does, if that withers and everything changes, no conferences, they make one big league like it's the NFL. There's an Eastern-Western conference, something like that. A whole different thing.
But outside of basketball,
by the way,
no one
on the
else is
destruction
making money.
thing, and basketball makes very little.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And basketball makes very little. Yeah. So, I mean, you're already seeing basketball players, increasingly go to like Australia or the G League.
Make money.
Because they feel like they can make more money in the year they're supposed to take off before they can go to the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else is going to destroy? Gender equity, like Title IX. I don't know how that continues to survive because all the non-revenue sports are subsidized off of football revenue. Mm-hmm. So if we take football revenue out and it no longer subsidizes everything, all these women's sports are going to disappear. So will the men's sports. All the non-revenue generating sports will begin to disappear to some great degree. So women athletes will end up with fewer opportunities because, now listen, you can say, so be it. The football players are the ones that earn the money. They should get the money. But this is the whole destruction and unintended consequences thing. Like, you can't just pick your battles going, this is right, because you start morally getting contradictory. The same people that were making the plantation arguments about this are the same people talking about gender equity in sports. I mean, they just generally are.
And I think they should have been able to make money off their likeness. Like Johnny Manziel signing jerseys. That's fine. I think that would be okay. But going down this road of NIL and everything that's tied to your school and your game, I think was a terrible idea. Because if you're signing things and making appearances and making money that way, that's based on your popularity, not based on the sports program you're playing for at your school.
Well, according to Feldman, again, in that episode of our show, they're going to try to rein that in. They're going to create a third-party vetting system for NIL deals to see if they're true market deals. This is something, again, I talked about in 2019. I don't know how they're ever going to do that. Like, how are you ever going to say that's a legit marketing deal? That's not.
No.
That's worth this on the market, but you're getting 3 times that. Thus, you're playing the player. Like, I don't know how you're ever going to do that. It's kind of wild. Like, pro football is actually more coherent. It's just all so incoherent.
Yeah. I never thought I'd see the day.
Yeah. Well, good luck. Good luck. Actually, I'm going to say this. Good luck to the University of Tennessee. I mean, it is 2 parties thinking that they can do better without each other, but they're both, my suspicion is they're both going to be much worse off. Goodbye to Nico Amileva. And goodbye to you. That's going to do it for us today here on The Will Cain Show. I hope you'll subscribe to us at Spotify or Apple. Come hang out with us every Monday through Thursday at 12 o'clock Eastern Time. We'll see you again next time.